Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely terrifying medical mystery, why a seemingly perfectly healthy heart suddenly just fails. I mean, we've all heard those stories, right? Extremely fit individuals, marathon runners, collapsing completely out of the blue, and it just leaves us wondering, how on earth can someone who does everything right fall victim to such a catastrophic event? Well, let's get right to the bottom of it. Okay, so let's dive right into this bizarre paradox. Think about it. You can push your body to the absolute limit, feeling totally fantastic, all while a literal ticking time bomb is silently growing inside your chest. Wild, right? Because the hard truth here is that biology simply doesn't care how fast you can run a 10K. Your body is incredibly adaptive. Actually, it's so adaptive that it can actively mask a 90% blockage. It just keeps your blood flowing perfectly right up until the exact second it doesn't. And this number right here brilliantly illustrates the immense danger we're talking about. For 50% of men and an astonishing 64% of women, the very first symptom of heart disease isn't, shortness of breath or chest pain. No, it's sudden death. Literally, they feel completely fine until the very second they don't. So moving into section 1, the fit heart attack and the silent paradox. To understand exactly how this silent threat develops entirely undetected, we've got to look at the heart's plumbing. So the heart is a muscle, and it demands way more oxygen than almost any other tissue in your body. And to get that oxygen, it completely relies on your coronary arteries. Think of these like the vital root system of a massive tree. We have a few main players, sure, but the left main artery branches into this massive vessel called the left anterior descending artery, or the LAD. Now, in the ER, they have a pretty grim nickname for this specific vessel, the Widowmaker. It supplies blood to the front and the bottom of the heart's main pumping chamber. So if you block a small twig, well, you just lose a leaf. But if you block the main trunk, the Widowmaker, the entire tree falls, leading to massive tissue death. Now, what's really fascinating is how this trouble actually starts in the first place. See, a healthy artery has an inside lining that is completely smooth, kind of like Teflon. Blood cells just slide right past without any friction. But over decades, things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, or even just the sheer mechanical stress of intense exercise, they can scratch and tear this smooth Teflon lining. So what does your body do? It tries to repair these microscopic scratches by sending LDL cholesterol to the site, acting almost exactly like spackle, patching a hole in drywall. Your immune system gets involved, and eventually, this whole mixture of cholesterol, calcium, and cellular waste just hardens right there into plaque. And that, my friends, is the process of atherosclerosis. That brings us to section 2, the myth of clogged pipes, and why it gives us a false sense of security. You see, this whole process builds into a fatal misconception. The absolutely crucial point to understand here is that plaque doesn't slowly clog the pipe like a dirty bathroom sink. Now, I know that sounds logical, but biologically, it's just incorrect. Through this incredible biological trick called positive remodeling, as the plaque grows, the artery actually stretches outward to accommodate it. It preserves the opening. This means the tube itself remains 100% open, blood flows perfectly normally, and you feel absolutely zero symptoms. And honestly, that is exactly why you can run a 10K with a massive amount of plaque and still feel totally fantastic. All right, section 3, soft plaque rupture, and what happens when the switch finally flips. So if the artery stays wide open, what actually triggers the heart attack? Well, it all comes down to stability. Imagine that plaque deposit is kind of like a blister filled with inflammatory gunk covered by just a super thin layer of skin. Now, extreme physical exertion, or a sudden massive blood pressure spike, can suddenly tear that thin skin. And when it ruptures, boom, all that content spills out. Your immune system completely panics, it thinks there's a massive open wound, and it instantly sends platelets over to form a huge clot. In mere minutes, this clot grows so large that it seals off the artery completely, just like a cork in a wine bottle. So it actually wasn't the slow buildup of plaque that killed the flow, it was the sudden rapid formation of the clot. In the medical world, this is called a type 1 myocardial infarction. Moving on to section 4, pushing limits and the crucial balance of supply and demand. Now, endurance athletes, they often suffer from a completely different mechanism, known as a type 2 myocardial infarction. Let's picture a super disciplined 50-year-old runner. He's right in the middle of a race. He doesn't feel that classic crushing chest pain. He just feels lightheaded, nauseous, kind of weird. When an otherwise fit runner like this arrives at the hospital with these vague symptoms, doctors immediately look for a specific protein called troponin in their blood. Think of troponin like the liquid inside a glow stick. When you snap the stick, the liquid leaks out, right? Similarly, when heart muscle cells die, they physically break open and leak troponin into the bloodstream. So our runner is definitely having a heart attack, but his artery isn't 100% blocked. It's actually only 50% blocked. So how does this even happen? Well, this perfectly illustrates a classic supply and demand crisis. Look, while you're just sitting on the couch, a 50% blockage is completely irrelevant. The artery is crimped, sure, but it still delivers a garden hose worth of blood, which is plenty. But at 170 beats per minute during a grueling race, your heart demands a fire hose of blood, and that crimped artery simply cannot deliver. Throw in an erratic electrical rhythm, like atrial fibrillation or AFib, and your heart is beating so fast it doesn't even have time to fill up. The heart muscle literally just suffocates. And this suffocation, it's called ischemia. Generally speaking, your heart can easily compensate for pretty much anything below a 70% blockage. But once you cross that 70% threshold, you might start feeling what we call stable angina. Think of it as a tightness in your chest when you're just walking up the stairs, but it magically goes away the moment you sit down. Basically, consider this your body's check engine light coming on. Let's head into Section 5, Collaterals and Warnings, focusing on your body's hidden backup systems. Since fatal heart attacks often pop up from those unnoticeable soft plaques well under that 50% mark, meaning way before the check engine light ever even comes on, we really need to talk about your body's backup systems. Believe it or not, your heart can actually build what's called collateral circulation. Think of your main arteries like a massive interstate highway. If a traffic jam persists for years and years, your heart literally paves side streets to bypass the blockage. And this brilliantly explains why a 70-year-old who has had decades to build these intricate detours might actually survive a sudden rupture that instantly kills a 40-year-old. For the younger person, the highway shuts down completely out of nowhere and there's simply no way around it. And when that main highway does shut down, emergency room doctors live by one very brutal rule: time is muscle. Just look at this timeline. At the 20-minute mark, irreversible damage begins. In just 90 minutes, vital, life-sustaining pumping muscle permanently turns into useless scar tissue. And as we all know, scar tissue does not pump. So to save that muscle, you have got to recognize the signs immediately. Now, men usually get the classic Hollywood heart attack, right? The sudden sense of doom, the heavy chest pressure, the arm pain. But for women, it is highly, highly insidious. They often don't get the dramatic Hollywood chest grab. Instead, their symptoms present as extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, or even just intense acid reflux. Seriously, if you ever feel these sudden, unexplainable symptoms, absolutely do not ignore them. Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Hidden Time Bombs, Screening and Prevention. Now that we thoroughly understand the biology of the disaster, how do modern cardiologists actually fix it? Well, during an active attack, if the plumbing fails, surgeons perform a PCI. They literally thread a tiny tube right through your wrist, they find the jam using a special dye, and they inflate a tiny balloon to smash the plaque against the artery wall. Then they deploy a permanent metal mesh scaffold, called a stent, to force that artery open forever. It is honestly an incredible piece of emergency engineering. But obviously, the true goal here is finding the fire before the house burns down, right? Standard blood work only tells you the ingredients floating around in your blood. It doesn't tell you if they're actually sticking to the walls. You need better data. First up is a CAC score. It's a quick scan that detects hardened calcium. A score of 0 is perfect. Over 400, well, that's a ticking time bomb. But the ultimate early warning system is a CT angiogram. This scan actually detects those invisible soft blisters we talked about earlier, the ones that haven't even hardened yet. Combine this powerful knowledge with controlling your blood pressure, managing your blood sugar to prevent inflammation, and hitting some zone 2 and HIIT training to force your body to build those collateral side streets. Because at the end of the day, the healthy heart attack is almost always a tragic result of ignorance. The technology absolutely exists today to see exactly what is happening inside your arteries before you ever lace up your shoes for a run. So the most important provocative question to ask yourself today as we wrap up this explainer is this: are you going to keep guessing about your health and just assume you're fine because you feel fit? Or are you going to use the amazing technology we have to look under the hood and know for sure? Don't guess, know. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hey, stay healthy out there.